recorded live at 4ZZZ Studios, Meanjin, Brisbane.
On 102.1 FM.
And broadcast across Australia on the Community Radio Network.
You're listening to Z Games.
Z Games brings you the best in gaming news, reviews, community and culture. Want to reach out?
Share your hot take?
Or do you just want to share your favourite game?
Find us on socials at ZED Games AU. Hello. You're listening to Z Games. My name is Zahra, and with me in the studio is...
Hazel.
And...
Tex.
And...
Mars.
Yay! Awesome. That is right, everyone. We've got two special guests in the studio with us, and I am so excited. You two are here to talk about a game that you've been developing, which we will get to in a bit. But before all of that, how are we all doing tonight?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm sleepy, but good.
Yeah? Well...
Doing wonderful, honestly.
Oh, fantastic. How about you, Hazel?
I'm great.
Slay. I'm also great. I'm having a great time. I was a little bit tired before the show, but every time I hear our intro begin, I get a little bit hyped up. One of the things that I am hyped up about is the week in gaming news, and we've got a lot to get through tonight. So, without further ado, Caroline, why don't you take it away?
This week in gaming news. Studio infamous for delays game. Cloud Imperium Games, the developers behind the perpetually delayed Star Citizen, have announced that its spin-off single-player game, Squadron 42, which was announced to be apparently feature-complete last year, has been delayed until 2026. The game was originally announced as part of Star Citizen, but has since been turned into a standalone project. The game's prologue was demoed at CitizenCon in Manchester, England, which apparently suffered from an assortment of bugs, glitches, and crashes. Cloud Imperium Games has, in the over 12 years since its initial crowdfunding campaign, made over $729 million, with still no release in sight for Star Citizen. Ubisoft France staff strike. The STJV, or the
Syndicat des travailleurs et travailleuses du jeu vidéo,
an independent union that defends the moral and economical interests of workers in the video games industry, as described by the website, called for a 3-day strike from October 15 to the 17th over Ubisoft's home working policy and pay. The STJV's site says as follows. Management just announced its decision to impose a return to offices for 3 days per week for all employees. This announcement was made without any tangible justification or any consultation with the workers' representatives. This decision is announced immediately after the failing of the profit-sharing negotiations. Exactly like previous salary negotiations, management's proposals were unacceptable. The negotiations timetable was appalling, and management was deaf to the proposals of the various employee representatives. News nibbles. Telltale has come out to confirm that The Wolf Among Us 2 is not cancelled after rumours that the game was on the chopping block circulated. Netflix has shut down one of their AAA game studios, known as Team Blue, which had some pretty big names attached to it, such as former Overwatch executive producer Chaco Son, head of creative on Halo Infinite Joseph Staten, and God of War's art director Raphael Grassetti. Vampire Survivors is getting some spooky Castlevania DLC for Halloween. To Castlevania will add over 20 characters and weapons and at least 10 hours of gameplay to the already stuffed to the brim game. Valve has said they won't be releasing a new Steam Deck console every year just for a small improvement. Instead, to be fair to their customers, they want to wait for a generational leap in compute without sacrificing battery life before they ship the real second generation of Steam Deck. Game releases. On October 25, we have Sonic X Shadow Generations for the PlayStation, Xbox, PC, and Switch, Call of Duty Black Ops 6 for PlayStation, Xbox, and PC, and on October 29th, we have Life is Strange Double Exposure for PlayStation 5, Xbox, and PC, Red Dead Redemption comes to the PC, Monster Heist Ultimate Secrets for the PlayStation, Xbox, PC, and Switch, and that is all this week in gaming news.
Thank you so much for the week in gaming news, Caroline. And no prizes for which game I'm super psyched for.
Hello, I'm Ben. I'm a game dev based in Canberra, working for Apollyon Studios. We're making Ascending Inferno, the Rage game from hell. It's a tricky precision platformer where you find yourself in hell and you've got to kick your brother's soul all the way out. You can find us on Steam, Ascending Inferno, and we are releasing on the 28th of October.
My name is Zahra, and with me in the studio tonight is Hazel, Tex and Mars. Say hello, you two.
Hello.
Hello.
Awesome. You two are here because you have a game in the works and we want to talk about it.
A video game?
Yeah.
A video game.
Who, us?
I've heard, a little bird told me, which does not feature in the game. A
There's
little
no
bird
birds.
told me that there is a game on the way called Key Fairy. Would you like to tell us about Key Fairy?
Yeah. Key Fairy's a hand-drawn folkloric pacifist bullet hell. It's about being a little whimsical fairy going on a little whimsical adventure and dancing around monsters to calm them down.
Fabulous. And Tex and Mars, I'll get you both to sort of introduce yourselves. Tex, who are you?
I'm a game designer. I've been making little games for the past 4 years. I recently graduated, and now I've been making Key Fairy for this year, full time.
Fabulous. And Mars, who are you?
I am Mars. I've been mainly doing like programming, but then I ended up becoming a full-time illustrator for this game. We studied university together.
Fabulous. Is that how you two met? Were you two like on a group project together? And
We met in first year, and we were on a project in first year, and then we didn't get to work on anything else until like...
We kept trying to be in like, groups together and kept like being like pushed out.
At
of
one
groups
point they
together for various
forcibly
reasons.
split us up.
rude.
It was very rude. And so in last year we were like, we'll make a whole game, I guess.
I
Yeah.
guess. And now here you are. So Key Fairy was shown, we talked briefly about it earlier this year when it was shown at the Queensland Games Festival, where you two got to have, sorry, remind me again what the awards were?
We won Best Emerging Game and the People's Choice Award.
I think those were very well deserved. It certainly made an impact, especially with the art style. So I do want to talk about the art style.
Yes.
Yes, it is hand-drawn. When you... This is something that's always kind of wondered. Like, was it sort of like you knew what you wanted the game to look like and you worked towards that? Or did it sort of develop over time as you were developing the game?
It did actually develop over time. Like, it was really interesting because we started off being really inspired by old 1-bit aesthetics and like old retro pixel art. And so it started off with that kind of crunchy pixel art look. But like as a like the hobbyist artist, like I've done a lot of like illustrations, just pen and ink, like growing up. And so like when we were trying to work out what art we needed, we decided to commit to me doing all the art instead of working out some art that we could like do between us. And so it ended up like slowly sliding towards just using the sketches that I was doing directly instead of using pixel art, like instead of turning it into pixel art. So it kind of started out as like a constraint of what mediums we're used to, and then became the identity of the game.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. And when you were developing the concept for the game, it's in a very playable state. It looks borderline finished from what I've seen so far.
Dangerous words.
It's still got. I know it still has a bit of a journey left, but it looks incredible so far and is a spectacular piece of work. What I was wondering is, did you always have like a firm idea of what you wanted the mechanics to be, like the gameplay style, or was that also something that sort of developed over time?
I mean, it's constantly developing. Initially we were trying to explore around the idea of having a bullet hell without the ability to attack, and then eventually it made sense to add in additional movement mechanics to make that work. So we put in a grappling hook sort of on a whim, and then that became a core feature of the gameplay.
Oh, of course.
I think that's every game that ever had a grappling hook is just like, we put it in for fun, but now it's actually the main thing in the game.
Yeah.
And then that's like everything. At this point, dialogue is a big part of the game, but for ages I fought to have no dialogue in the game.
Oh,
I was
really?
like, can't have dialogue because you're a weird little forest creature and they don't talk, and it keeps the vibe. But if you don't have dialogue, it just feels like you're killing things in a more complicated manner.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I guess. Tell us a little bit about like the mechanics and the gameplay, because you mentioned the grappling hook. I'm sure the listeners will want to know how that grappling hook comes into play.
Yeah, so you've got to use your grappling hook and your floaty, dancey movement to sort of swing and evade around monsters and collect little stars that they drop. And once you've collected enough stars, it calms them down and ends the spell that's like cast over the forest.
Oh, that's lovely. Hazel, you...
Yeah. Were you always set on it being a bullet hell?
I mean, initially we were like, what's ideas? What's a video game? We had a lot of like really crunchy RPG ideas, right?
Yeah, like I feel like we were thinking about a bunch of different things, like, what if you're a witch's assistant and you didn't have anything to like fight back against the monsters in the forest with, but you needed to collect herbs or whatever, and just like, I think bullet hell is one of the most fun ways that you can like, it's a really like stripped back and like playable 2D game.
Yeah, I think it works perfectly. Did you play a lot of bullet hells to kind of understand how that needed to look?
I played a lot of bullet hells before making the game. I really like them. I'm really bad at them. But I like that they're a really fast-paced, action-heavy genre that can have big art set pieces because they don't need to animate in the same way that a lot of other games do.
That is true.
Yeah.
Like, it's bullet hells and visual novels that have the most high-res art, weirdly. It's very strange.
I mean, that's kind of like one of the things is that when you have constraints, and Mars mentioned this earlier with the having it all be hand drawn, constraints tend to make you more creative. Like this is what you've got. This is the box you are given. You can fill that box up with as much detail as you want, which is a lot of fun. A great way to like fill things out. I'm not great at bullet hells myself. I'm actually terrible at them. But I can really appreciate that in more recent years, a lot of bullet hells have sort of like evolved into this other type of bullet hell that's more story driven, more like about an experience rather than, oh god, I'm being shot and I'm in hell.
Yeah, it's a pretty light bullet hell, ultimately. I'm not very good at bullet hells. There's a lot of boss fights and stuff that I struggle with in the game, but that a lot of the players will just pick it up and be like, that was easy, that was crazy.
Yeah, it's really weird, like, it seemed like people who had never played the game before, they go into one of the boss fights and like have zero experience and then just shred the boss somehow.
Yeah, but then
like people who've played it a lot, like it's just like that's really.
But then some playtesters will be like, I can't figure out how to get out of this room that I'm just in, this normal room. Everybody's got different skill levels. We're trying to make it accessible.
Yeah. All right, we're going to have a little music break and listen to some music that Mars sent me. And then we'll be back soon with more Key Fairies, so stay tuned.
Hi everyone, I'm Ria. I'm part of a two-person indie game studio called I Miss My Friend Studio. We're based out of Goa in India and we're working on a game called Fishbowl. Fishbowl is a narrative-driven visual novel-y RPG. It's about a girl named Alo who's just moved to a new city for her first job and she's living in isolation while grieving her grandmom's death. So it is a bit of an emotional story, but it's also one full of hope and friendship and community. The demo is out now on PlayStation 5 and Steam. Go check it out.
My name is Zahra. You're listening to Z Games, and with me in the studio is Hazel, Tex and Mars. Say hello, everyone.
Hey.
Hello.
I'm glad you didn't do the hello, everyone bit. I was so scared.
I'm not Caroline.
You're not Caroline. You're not Paul, and you're not Peter. Sometimes. We are Hazel, Zahra, Tex and Mars, and we're here to talk about Key Fairy. We talked a little bit about it earlier. It's Tex, could you just give us a recap of what Key Fairy is?
Key Fairy. It's a hand-drawn folkloric pacifist bullet hell about dancing through the forest.
And I love that, pacifist bullet hell. I'm a fan of that. I'm terrible at bullet hells, and I think they need to be friendlier. One of the things, we've talked a little bit about the art style, and we've talked a little bit about the mechanics and how that sort of came about. Let's talk a little bit about the music, because we just played a little bit earlier called Put Your Pom-Poms Down, and actually in the background we were listening to some more music from the game. So, Tex and Mars.
Oh yeah, so the music currently is all royalty-free stuff that we managed to find. I spend a lot of time, Mars also spends a lot of time looking through weird royalty-free music archives, and there's a bunch of weird experimental stuff. We're trying to have the game's music be a mixture of experimental and electronic and like ambient nature sounds. With the art style is not traditional game art, and we're trying to keep everything from being traditional game whatever, and that also applies to the music. And it's a game about dancing around things, so you want the music to be like pumpy and get you in the vibe.
Yeah. And you also do want to feel like a sort of a creature that's in the forest as well.
Yeah.
Like that's an important part.
Yeah. It's also, with everything being black and white, music is one of the few ways that we can communicate a state change to the player. Like when you're actually in a fight with something, we need to communicate that something's wrong, and so the music gets a lot heavier and changes significantly.
Yeah. Did you have like an idea of like what music you wanted to go for, or was it just sort of like browse and see what's funky and strange?
It was kind of like we were looking for a bunch of music, and then I just found this random like album on Bandcamp with a bunch of like really bizarre experimental music, and we were kind of conflicted between two different like personalities. One was like a very kind of ordinary game sound, and the other one was this weird industrial like percussion. And it was kind of like a last minute decision we made for a video at one point, and it just completely suited it and ended up working really well.
Stunning. Hazel, do you want to go?
I just wanted to say I really love those little stories of like, yeah, we did this like 5 minutes before we had to show the game off, and actually we decided to keep it forever because it was so good.
There's like, I feel like a good 30% of every game is content that was like that.
Yeah.
Like, this is going to be a placeholder.
Yeah.
We now love the placeholder.
Yes.
If anything happens to the placeholder, we will cry.
Do you have plans to replace any of the music that you're using at the moment, since it is all royalty-free stuff?
I don't think we have any plans to currently. We'd like to get more music, I think, is the big thing. We wanna have some custom stuff for like certain boss fights or for cutscenes and things, and for later areas of the game. Each area's got a different little ambient track, and we'd like to have more of that.
Well, I feel like I can recommend some weird experimental industrial artists for you who do, game composition. But we can talk about that after this.
Was there anything in particular that was... Did you ever hit that brick wall moment where it's just like there's a problem and it's just consuming your entire day that you were able to like resolve? or workaround? Any particular
we're constantly
challenges?
running into problems with like the game being black and white, and just the such limited amount of differentiation you can make, and having to like work out how to communicate stuff to players. We had a problem for a while where people, like, we continue to have this problem in different ways, but we were having a problem with people getting lost really easily. And we ended up solving it by like changing how the enemies like went back to being cursed and mad, which was really unintuitive, but ended up working.
Awesome. So we're coming up to a time now for the Key Fairy interview, but for our listeners who are just tuning in, where can people find out more about Key Fairy and keep track with our machine?
You can wishlist Key Fairy now on Steam. That's the best way to follow the game's development and to support us.
And you sort of have not really a release date, but kind of like a release.
We're roughly aiming for end of next year, maybe start of 2026.
Yeah. That'd be awesome. And anything else that you two want to add for our listeners at home?
Be nice. Be nice people.
Be nice people.
That's beautiful.
I like that. We can do more of that. It's also very important to note that there are no secrets.
There's no secrets in the forest.
Yeah, there's no secrets.
There's absolutely no secrets in the forest.
Go looking.
Don't even bother go looking for secrets. Like it'll just be a complete waste of time.
And definitely don't try to look for birds, because there aren't any.
There's no birds.
No birds.
No secrets.
No secrets. Just a bullet heaven and some chill vibes.
Weekly Dose of Science on 4ZZZ is now available as a podcast.
I learned that you can hear the difference between different water temperatures when they're poured. I'm going to pour one after the other into a different glass, and you have to tell me which one is which temperature. I've got a hot and a cold. Right, here's the first one. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I'm saying cold.
It sounds cool. Yeah.
Yeah? Okay.
Yeah.
Here's the second one.
Well played. Shut up. Search No Idea 4ZZZ on your favourite podcasting app. That's spelled KNOW, like no idea. It's a visual pun on an audio platform. I don't know why we did it.
Now, next up, we have an interview that Paul recorded while he was down at PAX. So take it away, Paul.
So, hello, Allard of Jackbox.
Yes.
You're just about to launch. You announced at least a new game.
Yeah, so on the 24th, or I guess the 25th for Australia, since you guys are living in the future.
Exactly.
We're releasing the game, the Jackbox Survey Scramble. And it's kind of, people will call it a spiritual successor to Guespionage or other survey game. It's not. It's beyond that. It's a single word survey, so we'll ask you best things to have on a t-shirt, right? And that's not even one of the surveys, but I'm just off the top of my head. And
muffins.
Exactly. And so people will just answer these surveys. We've already seeded it with a lot of data, but every region in the world will have their own sort of batch of data of evolving, changing data. So Australia will have its own one. So it won't be sort of like American-centric, or it won't be Australian-centric.
Is that data going to be exposed anywhere?
No, because
I would love to see the regional differences with some questions. That would be
that would be cool, actually.
Yeah.
I don't think we're going to publish that.
No, yeah.
I guess if you hack it,
almost okay, sorry for pitching at a dev. It's in-game, when these come up, and then just on the side, in the US, number one is this, and it's
yeah, I mean, I'm sure that team is already probably thinking about
yeah, I'm sure. It's
definitely scope creep.
Yeah.
But the thing is, we've actually, the idea is so simple. It's we're going to create this big list, but we're going to make games around them, mini games around it. So it's almost like a mini game pack, but all centered around surveys. Yeah. So we have a sort of a highest and lowest. So you have to figure out, you get points for the highest on the list, or when we switch that,
the lowest.
The people on the lowest end, Or we have a game that's called Bounce, which is very similar to a certain tennis game that you might remember from the 80s.
Virtua Tennis, of course.
Yes, it's a virtual tennis. And we have this basically a tic-tac-toe game where you're working teams to kind of sort of get 3 at a cross or 3 in a row. And you're working within different ranges, so top 10 of this or...
I think it was before you announced it, you sent out a survey.
Yeah.
And I started that survey, and I never finished it because I agonized over my answers. I need to be witty, but good. I don't know what they're using this for, but I'll just...
It's a lot of people clued into that we were doing something like this.
Yeah.
But the answers are fantastic so far. Like, I think that's another sort of hallmark of Jackboxes and why I like working with. I went to school for art, but
me too.
when I started working with the Jellyvision folks back when I was at Berkeley Systems, I realized working with writers is good because I'd rather be designing for funny, smart ideas than just boring advertising stuff. Even if it's great advertising, having great writers makes a huge difference. And I think that's kind of a big focus of Jackbox is the sort of the writer improv culture that has kind of infused everything that we do.
I always like any game that heckles the players, which is a lot of them.
It's funny, like the attitude around that has changed so much since the early Jackbox or you don't know Jack days. People love to be abused, and we've moved away from that because people just don't like that as much anymore. Like they're like, hey.
I think in Australia you'd be fine. We like a bit of abuse. It's a national identity.
Noted.
As the market is constantly shifting. At the moment, you're sort of doing like these pack releases and a few individual games. So what is the survey game called again?
The Jackbox Survey Scramble.
That's it, Survey Scramble. A new survey was in it.
I always like alliterations. Sorry.
That's okay. It's like, is that still foreseeable future of how you're going to engage with players?
I think this was a bit of we did Party Pack 10, and we were like, okay, let's. There's a couple of things that we wanted to do. We wanted to do the Mega Picker. We wanted to try some other things. And we did a standalone which is the Survey Scramble. And you'll see more, traditional packs from us in the future. But there's also other things that we have cooking for next year.
Yeah.
That are familiar yet new in terms of how you play. The graphical pipeline is going to be different for some stuff. So there's some interesting things. It's the focus will still always be. We're not going to walk away from party packs because I think we like making them and people like them.
Yeah, and you've certainly got a dedicated fan base. You've always got me at least. If one sells enough, you're always in.
Yeah, absolutely. There's some guy in Australia.
Don't worry, he'll buy. He's an idiot. Sometimes he buys them on Switch and on PC. So,
and he hasn't played them yet, but he will someday.
He's waiting for his kids to get old enough.
We're dedicated to the kind of games that we sort of see ourselves as kind of the Parker Brothers, or of old. With some weird stuff. We're going to try some weird stuff.
I love weird stuff.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you very much for your time.
Cheers.
Cheers.
That was fabulous, Paul. I'm so glad everyone had fun at PAX. I'm sorry for everyone who got sick after PAX, but hey, sometimes that's just how it is. But unfortunately, that's all we have time for tonight. So why don't we all say goodbye, see you later, maybe throw in some I love yous?
Yeah?
Yeah, all right. Goodbye.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Thank you so much for having us. Thank you.
No worries. Thanks for listening to Zed Games. If you'd like to listen to more, you can find us on the Community Radio Plus app
Or find us on socials at ZED Games AU.
See you next time.